in 6 days' time, I turned 35. And without having a midlife crisis feel about it, I have already jumped the gun to make a big decision about my life. Because when you zoom out and you realize how long people live on this planet, this beautiful planet that we call Earth, the amount of time that we spend on this planet at the peak of our qualities of life is not that very long. When you're a child, when you're born, you have the first 10 years just beginning to understand what it is like to be a human. Obviously you've got your parents, you're raised, and you go to school. You have no sense of understanding of what responsibilities are. You then get a little bit older, you go to secondary school, still the same. You're starting to get a sense of things a little bit, but not really. You're still in a system. And then eventually you become an adult, whether you go to uni or you get a job or you take a gap year or whatever. You get to about 18 and you start to really realize that there's only, like, your life is ahead of you, and you still aspire to achieve all the things that you want to achieve and live the life on your terms. But you don't really recognize like how short of a time that is. Let's fast forward, you double your years on this planet, 18, 36, 35. And you start to realize that whilst life has happened, quite a lot has happened within that time frame. There's only so much of it left, really, before things start to go backwards a bit. Your body starts to feel a bit creaky once you hit your 30s. Your responsibilities creep up. You might have been lucky enough to have a child or maybe more, or a family, or even the other way. You might have gone through life decisions that have been quite drastic in that respect, i.e. getting divorced or separation or anything like that. And you also might have decided that you're going to change your path completely. You know, I've gone through a career change. I went through a career change this year, essentially. I'm still an online coach. I still coach people, PT people, but that's definitely taken a different step. And I've also made the decision to leave acting behind, which is what I did for the last 15 years of my life. Now I just focus on my recruitment side business, and then my online PT, and helping people get in shape, live long, etc. And if you want to learn more about that, I've got a link below. It's 30 days, 30 ways to live not just a stronger body, build a stronger body, but also build a strong life. And if you want access to that, it's just 30 emails. The link is in the description below. It's free. But as I was saying, in terms of like when you get to 35, it comes to a point where it really, some people think it's like when they're 30 or when they're 40, but in the middle of that as well, life definitely starts to look a little bit different. And I've made the decision that I'm going to look at the rest of my life, or the rest of my days on this earth now, as though I am living in the second half of my life. And that second half may not look completely different to begin with. It's getting hot, so I'm just going to open the window. But it does mean that how I see it will look different, and how I live will be different. How I train, how I exercise, how I look after my health will be different. I'm going to put myself under the microscope just that little bit more. I'm going to take my bloods just that little bit more often. I'm going to get my health check. I've got a health check screen with Nico Health in Birmingham in September, which is another 2.5 months away. And I'm also going to train differently. For the last 10 years, I've been training mainly in physique. Mainly in physique in the sense that I used to get photo shoot ready, I used to bulk and cut. Think bodybuilding style training. And then basically like coaching others to do the same, get into photo shoot shape or drop a lot of body fat if they needed to, and then as a byproduct of that, improve their health markers, you know. But it was as a byproduct, it wasn't as a fact that they would do that. Now I'm thinking things differently. A couple of weeks ago, I had played football for the first time in over 10 years. Played football with a bunch of strangers. I joined this app and it was pretty cool. You know, I enjoyed it. But literally 10 minutes in, I injured my right quad. I skinned someone, I was through in on goal, got really giddy and excited, and I went for power. And in that power, my quad shot up. Now, I put on a lot of muscle between now and then. And also, let's be honest as well, over the last couple of years, I put on a little bit of body fat as well. So I'm genuinely carrying more muscle, maybe a little bit more fat as well. And that means I'm just overall much heavier than what I was about 10 years ago. I'm talking 10, potentially even 15 kilos. I didn't really track my body weight back then before I started being a PT, but that's when I last played football. So in my head, I still feel like I can do all these things that I used to do on the football pitch. I still feel like I can do a 100-meter sprint. I still feel like I can do all of these things. But my body is quickly telling me now that that is not the case. That is not the case, bro. And you need to work differently if you're going to succeed, or like ever step foot on a football pitch again, ever do things that you want to do, which I still want to do. I still want to be able to beat my son in a race by the time he's 20 years old. I still want to be able to be on a football pitch and just hold my own, not do walking pace football, you know? I may be 35, but I'm not redundant, do you know what I mean? But the truth of, if you don't use it, you'll lose it, starts to become apparent very quickly in your 30s, very quickly. In your 20s, you can get away with it. In your 30s, you start to notice, and by the time you're in your 40s, your body's just paying bills. Like, that's literally all you're doing and beyond. So, how I see life very differently going into the second half of my life. From a health perspective, I'm going to be looking into the microscope just a little bit more. I'm going to be taking my blood pressure. I'm going to be looking after my blood glucose levels. I'm going to look after my cholesterol. I'm going to go for health checks, pay for them, invest in my health just a little bit more to check up on it, and then take action upon that on a regular basis. I'm going to train now in still bodybuilding sense. I still want to focus on being jacked. I still want to focus on having muscle, but I also want to focus on making sure that I can jump, I can sprint, I can run. My tendons aren't just gonna, you know, just leave me at any given minute because I haven't used them, or my joints are not gonna be shocked at the point when I'm trying to be through on goal again. It's important to make sure that I remind my body that my body still exists, and therefore focus on injury prevention. Take that extra warm-up before you train. If that means you need to commit to a little bit extra time in your training, even if you feel like you don't have time, then you need to do that, and you need to find ways around that. And that's essentially where I'm going now. Mentally, it's the same. You know, again, in your youth, you don't even understand mental health. In your 20s, you feel like you start to understand mental health until you get slapped in the face with something. Real stress, real life stresses, real responsibilities. But then you also go, I'm young enough to kind of get out of this. By the time you're in your 30s, you kind of go, I'm tired of this. I don't want to keep experiencing these problems, or whatever these problems are happening at the moment. I need to find a better way to deal with it and overcome them. And if you don't have that, then these stresses just add up over time and effectively destroy your physical health at the end of it anyway. So it's really important to make sure that we don't discount mental health. So when I'm talking about the second half of my life, and whenever I'm documenting things or talking to you guys on YouTube or wherever content that you see me, whether that's in my emails, whether that's in on Instagram or on this platform, then essentially you're going to see me talk about what it's like being a dad in their mid-30s, focusing on their health, their longevity, their performance, and how you can do that too, so that you can build a strong body, but also a strong life. So, in a way, this is kind of like a new chapter before my new chapter begins. This is my line in the sand. This is me speaking to you guys. In tomorrow's video, I'm going to, well, I forgot to say, I'm posting daily. And if you want to keep up with that, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube. And yeah, be sure to just watch out for things that might be insightful for you to help you achieve living the best second half of your life in the best way possible. And that might sound a little bit morbid, but it's, if we can just face the facts, if we can just face the facts that, you know, you will probably die at around in your 70s or beyond, if you're lucky. You know, by the time you get to your 80s, it's considered that you've had a good innings. You only have a small percentage of your time where you live in your peak years, and not just physically, I'm talking like lifestyle, money, everything. Realistically, that's between the ages of 25 and 50, really. And then everything else starts to go a little bit south. Like you would likely have less energy, unless you'll likely have a lot less energy for a lot of these things. Unless, like, you know, you don't focus now on building and recognizing where you're at, then each year is like tiny deposits taken away from you every single time. And I've said this in my last videos as well. So if you are interested in a fast track to understanding more about what I'm talking about, and you want access to 30 ways to improve your life so that you can build a strong life and a strong body, link is in the description below. I have nothing to sell you at this moment. Stay tuned for that, but that is free. And like I said, tomorrow I'll go over some principles that might be useful to you. I've got a little whiteboard. I'm going to write on the whiteboard, and it's a nice little whiteboard video. And yeah, we're just going to get after just starting this new chapter as a pre-35-year-old, living the best second half of his life to the best of his ability, and how you can too.